Breaking cycles, reclaiming power, and rewriting the narrative. What if I told you that this wasn't just a personal journey, but generational? Too many carry the weight of wounds they never asked for, trapped in patterns that weren't theirs to create. But what happens when someone chooses to break free? Not just for themselves, but for generations to follow. This conversation is about survival, transformation, and the courage to step beyond trauma into purpose. If you think your past defines you, it's time to challenge that belief because healing is a revolution. Welcome to IMPCTRS Out Loud. I'm your host, Tracy B. Allen. IMPCTRS Out Loud is where social impact meets strategy, spotlighting trailblazing entrepreneurs, their challenges, and the revolutionary innovations driving real change. Each week, we dive into powerful stories, strategies, and insight to inspire and equip those passionate about making an impact through business. At the forefront of this revolution is Tywanah Evette, a woman who turns her deepest pains into a mission for healing and transformation, born into adversity and tested by unmeasurable trials, from surviving generational trauma and abuse to reclaiming her life after a suicide attempt. She has emerged as a fierce advocate for breaking cycles and stepping into authenticity. As the force behind Black Butterfly Goddess, which I like that name, she helps others shed the weight of their past, embrace their spiritual gifts, and redefine their futures. Her journey isn't just one of survival, it's a testament to resilience, self reclamation, and the power of ancestral healing. Tawana, welcome to Impactors Out Loud.
Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting. I've been waiting for this conversation.
So have I, because I have had quite a few guests who have come on to talk about generational trauma and how it has affected their lives and what they have done. But I like your approach to it, and I'm excited to talk about how people can get beyond it because I think that it keeps so many people stuck in a negative place. So, why don't you tell us your cost story?
So, my story. So we knew I was psychic at 2 years old. I'll say
Okay.
that. My mother realized my mother was psychic, but hid. My grandmother was psychic, but hid. Um, my mother told me the story when she was still here, when she was still with us, of how at 2 years old, she was in the kitchen cooking. And back in the 70s, kitchens still had doors, some of them, all this open concept.
Right.
She peeked out because she heard me like squealing and laughing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was running around the living room going, Pop, Pop, you can't catch me. The phone rang, and it was my Nana telling her that my Pop Pop had transitioned. At 9 years old, I met my real father when he came looking for me. At 10 years old, my mother went to nursing school after having a nervous breakdown, and I was sent to live with my father, the man who I barely knew. I went through unimaginable pain from the moment that United flight landed at JFK Airport in New York City until I got away from his grips.
Okay.
Where
were you living prior?
I was living with my mother we had moved to Seattle for a while.
Seattle,
Best
Washington.
year of my childhood, yes. Best year. I was this New York City kid watching cows, and I was running through the woods and playing baseball. Like, it was great, coming from the city. So she sent me back from Seattle to New York to live with my dad and my father. And the first night there, I was in the room crying because, of course, I don't know this man.
Mm-hmm.
And he and his girlfriend get in an argument. Now, she was a sweetheart. I loved Miss Jean. She was so good to me.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, "No, not this one. I'm done." And I see her come out with like a laundry basket full of clothes and a trash bag. And she goes, "Baby, I tried. I'll be back every week to do your hair."
Wow.
At 10 years old, you're like, "You tried what? What are we talking about here?"
Right.
So my father got pretty drunk that night and slipped into my bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And my little hands fought. My little body was twisting and wiggling and turning and fighting. But 210 pounds versus probably 70 or 80. He
Mm-hmm.
won. The next day I went to school covered in bruises. I asked my 5th grade teacher, Miss Antisovsky, in Far Rockaway, New York, "Can I talk to her outside?" So she
Mm-hmm.
comes outside and I talk to her and I tell her what happened. And she has the sub take over the class for a minute. And here I am thinking, yes, they're going to call my mom. I'm going to get out of here. She takes me down to the counselor's office where they proceed to laugh at me.
What?
"Oh, you're an active kid. You just fell off your bike." Yes, they thought it was funny. "Your father's a deacon. He's a good man. He works for immigration." Immediately, my mouth was closed. Immediately,
So he was part of the church.
yes. Yes, he hid in the church.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately I knew no one would ever believe me. I remember all my hopes and dreams that I had and the things that I talked about with my friends in Seattle of what I was going to be when I grew up. It was like water,
Mm-hmm.
drained, gone. And I settled into the darkness. It continued on. My mother moved back to New York City about a year after that. And I overheard the argument where he said, "You'll never win in court. You're still in nursing school. I work for immigration and I'm a deacon. I will take her from you for life if you don't marry me."
Oh,
I heard,
wow.
I heard it. And so she did. She paused at the wedding. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, when that pause happened, I'm like, "Say no,
Right.
say no, say no."
Right.
Again, I'm this kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
At that time, can I interrupt you a minute?
of
At that
course,
time, did she know what was happening? Okay. Okay.
I stopped talking after I was laughed at.
Right.
And so a few years go by and I'm 15 years old and I come up pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't my boyfriend's. He had never touched me. It was my father's.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, I didn't share that. I after I had the termination, I couldn't take it anymore, and I did share what he was doing. But at that time, my mother had just received a terminal diagnosis.
Oh, wow.
She was dependent on him
Mm-hmm.
for medical care and finances.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't just leave and support the two of us. Even with the job I had, we wouldn't have made it.
Right.
So I went and lived in the group homes in New York.
Okay.
That in and of itself was a traumatic experience. Um, I kept the secret for 32 years.
Really? So
Yes.
you never told anyone else after that fifth grade teacher?
No,
Okay.
not even my best friend who went with me for the termination. I
Wow.
told her 3 years ago, I told her, and she fell to her knees.
Wow. So you carry that unimaginable trauma with you all those years, just bottled up and not being able to express it to anyone.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Yes.
Um, that's a lot.
The first person I told
Mhm.
was my ex boyfriend. He took it to his family where they proceeded to laugh and talk about how I wasn't good enough because I was damaged.
What is going on? Like,
In this world, I don't know. He also
why are people
decided to
laughing
tell
about something like this? I don't even.
we
This
look,
conversation is
you and I are
baffling
in the
to me.
same space. I'm like, what's wrong with
Laughing?
y'all? What is wrong with y'all? But he then told every teacher at his school.
Why would he do that?
My old therapist said he checked every box for being a covert narcissist.
Narcissist.
I
Hmm.
can't diagnose him. I can just repeat
Right.
what he said.
Hmm.
And he would keep me awake for days. I had never been through something like that. When I look back, I'm like, how did you even live through that? A lot of dissociation.
Wow.
He would keep me awake for days, screaming at me, punishing me, isolating me.
Hmm. And
And
that's because you weren't healed. So you probably had,
I
you felt
took
like this
people.
was, yeah, this was normal. This
Yeah,
was just what I was supposed to get.
exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. I thought something was wrong with me.
Right. Right.
And so I got a phone call on a Wednesday
Hmm.
in March that my brother in law transitioned.
Hmm.
And so, of course, I flew to DC to be by my sister's side. And I had to be the strong one because my type A, very perfect sister was a bowl of jello.
So was this your mom's daughter as well?
Yes.
Or, okay, so why didn't she go to New York with you?
My sister,
Yeah.
because, I'm sorry, all of my siblings are much older.
Oh,
They
okay.
were all on their own. They were
Okay.
all on their own.
Okay, so you're the
I'm the
baby
baby of
baby.
8. Yes, yes. So everybody was up and out of the house,
Okay, got
20
you.
years old and older.
Okay.
So, and this was my father, not hers.
Hers. Okay. Understood. Mhm.
So, it was hard watching her become a bowl of jello because even when mom transitioned,
You
she
didn't
cried,
cry.
but she still went back to work,
Hmm.
within a
Hmm.
reasonable amount of time. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't see her fall apart. I watched
Hmm.
her before
Hmm.
my eyes crumble, and I'm still shocked to this day.
Hmm.
And so, I went back home. Every alarm bell in my body was screaming, go to your own house. I had
Hmm.
my own place.
Oh, you did.
Yeah,
Okay.
I had a beautiful townhouse in the rich side of town.
Okay.
Again, this is
Mhm.
what happens when you don't heal generational trauma before
Right.
you go out here and get in relationships.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so everything was screaming, go home. My ex best friend even took a chance as we were flying down the runway, getting ready to nose up. Why don't you go to your house? She
Hmm.
knew there was something in her that knew something was going to happen.
Hmm.
And I said, he's already on the way to the airport. I don't feel like arguing. Little did I know. So I get in the car, and his son is there, and his son is one of the brightest lights to ever exist.
Hmm.
He was so special. And I try to be upbeat and friendly because, I've learned my lesson with children and them feeling a certain type of way. So I'm not going to bring
Right.
these, oh my God, you won't believe what I just saw kind of energy to him. I'm going to be upbeat. And so I get in the car and I say, you know what? When I lived in DC and worked for presidential appointees, I never went to any of the sites. I wanted to get away from the old buildings. I said, but why don't we take him? He's a STEM master. Like his child was so ridiculously intelligent. And I'm like, why don't we take him? He would love the museums and things. The car got cold. Oh, heck. What did I say wrong? Now, my knee is going. I'm nervous. I'm starting to fidget. He gets quiet. The car gets quiet. Oh, God, I know what's coming. So we get home. I take a shower. And this is the only time I listened to that someone that said, put your phone in your robe pocket and hit record. And
Okay.
I did. And so I go in the living room and I sit next to him and I go to lay my head on his shoulder and he goes, I'm not going anywhere where you traipsed around with some other man. And I went, traipsed? Like, I don't traipse, honey. Like that was the word that got me. I was like, traipsed? Me? And so even in my low self-esteem, I knew that I didn't traipse.
Right.
And so I said, and I told you, I've never visited the sites. I always wanted to get the heck out of there.
Right.
Instead of reassuring me that I'm the only one you want to be with, you start an argument. You loved your first husband more than you love me. And I'm sitting here like, okay, your phone's in your pocket. So you'll be able to hear whether you're losing it or this is real. And so because of my father's abuse, I became a master at dissociation, leaving my body. I was a pro. And I remember looking at myself from across the room, and I'm sitting there completely emotionless as he screams. And at one point, after an hour or so, I get up and I just walk in the bedroom. And I laid in the bed. And he came behind me and I wouldn't engage. In that moment, I thought, if you take that whole bottle of medicine you just picked up, no one would know.
Right.
I said, no, you're better than that. And I went to sleep. The next morning I got up. It was the only day of my life that I was unhappy to see the sun.
Wow.
And I made a cup of coffee and I went back in the bedroom and I sat on the bed because I'm really trying to process. My sister is a bowl of Jell-O. I just left her with a 6-month-old King Corso who she has no idea what to do with. And she's a bowl of Jell-O.
Wow.
And so
That's a dangerous situation. A very dangerous situation to have. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he comes in and the argument starts up again. And again, that numb feeling washes over me. And I walked over and took every pill in the bottle. Took it with hot coffee, went in the kitchen, drank vinegar. I hate vinegar. I've always hated vinegar. I drank it straight.
Wow.
I knew it would make the pills dissolve immediately.
Faster.
I went and put my butterfly sweatshirt on that my kids bought me. They were all adults in their own places, successful, doing their thing.
So you had mentioned, just to piggyback, that you had been married before. So you got married,
Yes,
you
two
went to
terrible
college, got
individuals.
married, had children.
No, I had a child in high school,
Okay.
didn't finish college, and
Okay.
got married.
All right. Okay.
So, terrible individuals, terrible people. But even in all their terror, they couldn't match my ex.
Oh, wow.
I would rather endure what my father put me through again than to spend one night with my ex. That's how bad it was.
Wow.
So, I took the medicine. And in hindsight, I was sitting here one day thinking back to that because I was like, thinking, reflecting how far you've come. And I was like, girl, look at you. Look how far you've come. And I thought back to that moment when I took it and he goes, great. Now I have to go get syrup of Ipecac. And I'm like,
How does he know that?
he would only know that if he's been in this position because
That's
you've
right. That's what
been here
I was like.
before.
How would he
This
know that?
wasn't your first rodeo.
Right.
But in that moment,
And he
I
wasn't in the medical field.
no.
Right. So
He's a
he had been
teacher.
through
He's
it
a fourth
before.
grade teacher.
He
So
had been through it before.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. And so I moved back to DC.
He was a fourth grade. Wait a minute.
He's a fourth grade teacher.
You're dropping little gems in between. Like, he was a fourth grade teacher, and this was his behavior outside the classroom? Wow. Do you know what it's like to teach fourth graders? Like, how do you go from
That.
empathy, concern, patience? It's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
That's what I called him.
Wow.
That's what I called him.
Okay. That is insane.
So when he left the
He
house,
was a
I left the
terror. He
house
was
and went and
literally
laid down. But he was a
terrorizing you.
demon. I called him a demon.
Yeah. Wow.
I called him a demon.
Mm. So he went to get the medicine, and what happened?
I left the house and I went and I started getting sleepy, maybe 4 houses away. And
Mhm.
I don't know if you've ever been to Atlanta, but they build the houses this close to
Right.
each other. So
Yes.
that just tells you, things were
Mhm.
starting to activate. And
Mhm.
I went and laid in the woods. And I wrote, I'm sorry in my phone. And I said, Mommy, I'm coming. And I
Mhm.
went to sleep. I kept telling my daughter I went somewhere.
Mhm.
And I finally remembered I went to the ancestral plane.
Mhm.
There was my mother and my stepfather, the man that I grew up with,
Mhm.
that I called daddy, that never told me no.
Mhm.
The man who made me believe if I wanted to fly, I could. The man who would put me up on his shoulders and bounce around and, you know,
Mhm.
my daddy. The man who would have ripped my father limb from limb
Mhm.
if I could have found him. We didn't have the technology. So my daddy was there and he had his head down and because he doesn't want to tell me no.
Mhm.
It's not time, boom, boom.
Mhm.
And I went over to my mother and I'm begging her, Mom, please, I can't do this anymore. I'm worthless.
Mhm.
Nobody needs me. Nobody loves me. I'm unlovable. I'm Satan's child. I'm literally Satan's child. Mom, just let me stay.
Mhm.
And she goes, people are waiting for you. You have a purpose.
Mhm.
It begins now. And she pushes me back and I wake up in my 3D body.
Mhm.
Now, the first thought that I had wasn't necessarily a healthy one. It was, he's right. You are worthless. You couldn't even do this right.
Mhm.
But that was my broken self.
Right.
Um, I went through therapy, all that stuff, and moved to DC right after.
Mm-hmm.
and to be with my sister to help her. That's when I knew I was a healer, because my body was literally filtering her emotions and this dog's emotions. But I'm screaming from inside because I've just been through this really traumatic experience and everybody's expecting me to be normal.
Right.
I can't be normal right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to cry too. I want to break down too. You're crying,
Mm-hmm.
you're breaking down. I want to do that too.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not my calling. When I got into my apartment 8 months
Mm-hmm.
later, my mother's voice got so loud I couldn't sleep. And I would sit outside scripting, which is writing from the subconscious,
Mm-hmm.
all night. Snow. I've got this big Canada Goose coat and a heated blanket that I used to sit outside with,
Mm-hmm.
just scripting, dumping the subconscious. And a year ago, last week, she said, it's time to use your voice. It's time to walk in your purpose.
Okay.
By then, I knew what my purpose was. And I haven't shut up since, and I don't plan on it.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So a few questions. When did you cry? Because I know crying can be very cathartic. And as a person who doesn't really like to cry, I'm not a crier. Some people cry at the drop of a dime.
Mm-hmm.
I can go through immense emotions and not shed a tear. When I am crying, I'm either at my wit's end from anger, or I'm at my emotions are so overflowing with
Right.
grief or whatever that there's no other way for it to come out but to cry, or I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
go crazy. So when
Mm-hmm.
did you cry? Because I noticed along the line you talked about not crying. So
Yes.
when did you finally have that cry?
When I got in my apartment.
When you got in your apartment.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's
Because
when you started hearing your mom.
yes,
Okay.
in the time that I lived with my sister, I don't like the word lost. A lot of
Hmm.
friends stepped away.
Hmm.
I stepped away from a lot of people. I started going through my spiritual awakening. That's when everything goes to hell. And even
Right.
my children walked away for a time, rightfully so.
Hmm.
Rightfully so. Um, they are very brave and beautiful women.
Hmm.
Um, very proud of them. But I cried when I got in here. I spent so many nights rocking in the shower with water running until it was cold,
Hmm.
just crying. Um, I just started sleeping on a normal schedule, which means my body just literally started coming out of that, because the
Hmm.
body keeps score. The body
Oh
keeps
yeah, I know.
score of all of that. And so I couldn't sleep the night through
Hmm.
till November.
Wow,
That's when
that's
I
just the other
started
day.
sleeping at night. Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But that
Hmm.
was my body that
Hmm.
needed to finish that
Yeah,
release.
releasing all the pain, the
Exactly,
anxiety. Yeah.
exactly.
The
I
trauma.
mentally, I was in a great space,
Hmm.
but it was just the body that needed to finish that release. And
Hmm.
so I just started sleeping nights. Um, but yes, I did it. I did it. I did it alone. Well, I wasn't alone. I've got ancestors all over this room. But
Hmm.
I didn't have anybody that would go get my medicine or
Hmm.
do anything. It was just me.
So is this during this point, is this when you decided to tell your friend
Yes.
what happened all those years
Yes.
ago? Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
I finally made the decision and I confronted my family about it.
Hmm.
My brother goes, well, I'm sure there's proof that it happened. You
Even
slimy
today?
you slimy so and
Why
so.
is it that nobody? I don't understand this.
No, my older my siblings from my father's first marriage all believe me. They believed
Okay.
me then.
Uh-huh.
and they believed it when I
Okay.
told them.
Mm-hmm.
My siblings from my mother are the problem. The oldest sister believed it. My brother is anyway. Um, and my other sister, the one who lost her significant other, said that she's not going to deny my truth. So that pretty much means I don't believe you, but I'm going to
If
let
you
you.
say so, I'll just
Exactly.
support you.
I'll
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know how that makes you feel though.
But you know what? It told me everything I needed to know about all of them.
Got
My
you.
whole life, I looked up to my siblings and tried to
Mhm.
gain their approval. I don't need their approval.
Right. Right.
I don't need them.
Mhm.
And so my brother is no longer part of my life. I blocked him. You want
Mhm.
proof? I'll sign a waiver. Go to New York City to the courthouse and get
Mhm.
proof.
Right.
Oh, you went to court? No, New York City just has the funds to take a child out of a suburban apartment where she has her own bedroom and own bathroom and
Mhm.
put her in a group home. Yeah, because that really happens.
Mhm.
Um, and I just had the conversation with my sister. This is my truth. I'm going to speak it. And if you choose to stay in my life, you will do so respectfully.
Right.
And she said, okay. And so I started sharing with certain individuals, my best friend from high school,
Mhm.
my siblings from my father's first marriage. My brother-in-law had to walk out of the house, the one married to my other sister.
Mhm.
Um, that sister, she just held me so tight and cried. And she said, baby, why didn't you tell us?
Mhm.
Antoinette Antisovsky. That's why.
Right.
And when I told her, she was furious about that. And so was my brother-in-law.
Of course, and rightfully so. I cannot
Normal
believe.
people would be.
I
Normal
just
people would
cannot
be.
believe that. Um, did you end up telling your children?
My children recently found out.
Okay.
They've watched some of my podcast and things
Mhm.
before we reconciled
Mhm.
officially. They had been watching me. One
Mhm.
stumbled into my TikTok one night. You know how you hit the screen? You're watching a live from behind the live and you hit the screen
Yeah.
accidentally. And I'm looking at the little thing and I'm like, wait a minute.
Is that my
You
kid?
know that dot.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, they know now.
Mhm.
And we haven't talked about it. There's no need to talk about it between me and them.
Mhm.
Um, the only thing that, I shared with my children was I failed you and I fucked up.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to say sorry because sorry has become meaningless
Mhm.
today. But I will say that your truth and your depiction of your childhood is accurate.
Mhm.
I will honor your truth. And not that you owe this to me, but if you give me the opportunity, I will show you something different. And so we've reconciled. I got to
That
spend,
takes a level of emotional maturity
yes.
to tell them, "Hey, I validate whatever you feel about me,
Mhm.
right? Whatever you think I did, however I made you feel, I am giving you validation in that. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to try to rationalize it. This is the truth that you feel that you have gone through. This is
Yes.
what you feel you've gone through in your life with me as your mother.
Yes.
All that I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for for me to say I'm sorry or anything like that. Let's just see if we can move on from here. That's very emotionally mature.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and that's to show that you have gone through the full cycle
Yes.
of healing, right?
Yes.
Because you have to be healed to come to that place.
Yes. You do.
Mhm.
You do.
Yeah.
And so they my middle child flew up
Mhm.
last weekend to celebrate my 50th with me.
Oh,
My
nice.
oldest did try to get the day off. She works for the airlines. She was going to bring my grandbabies. Um, and I got a message from my youngest this morning. And so things have changed. Life has changed.
Yeah.
I love my little life.
The
You
little
know
life
that,
you
that little
created.
song
Yeah.
that's all over. I think I like this little
Good
life.
little life.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've settled in
Hmm.
to what I created, and I love it. And it's so peaceful.
Yeah. So my question to you is, so you've gone through the full transformation. How are you using this transformation to help the greater community? How are you using it to help other women? Because you do have Black Butterfly Goddess. So how
Yes.
is Black Butterfly Goddess helping to impact change within the community?
What we are doing
Mhm,
is I provide coaching, teaching, and even readings because they're very healing
mhm,
um, to our women who have been through SA, domestic violence, domestic abuse. Um, there was a young lady that when she came in my TikTok live last night,
mhm,
my mother said, speak to her.
mhm.
And her question was, is somebody going to marry me or whatever?
Mhm.
And I get those questions all the time.
Oh,
And I'm
I just about to
like,
say that's just
look,
such a common question that
it
like
is.
people
It
ask.
is. And, I first have to explain to them, stop asking every psychic that you're giving away
Right.
energy. But
Yeah.
this young lady was different. There was something different about her energy. And my mom was like, talk to her.
Uh,
And she asked that question. And I said, baby, I need you to stay around for a second and just listen to what I have to say. And you can
mhm,
be like this crazy old lady with the head wrap on, whatever, but just hear
mhm.
me out. And I told her, former president of the Pick Misha People Pleasers Club here.
Oh Lord.
I'm just honest and raw and true
Oh.
about it. And I
Uh-huh.
went into how love is not a feeling, it's an action. And I am
It is.
showing women love.
Mhm,
I am showing our women
mhm,
how to love them, how to pour into them. I am showing them
mhm.
how to believe in them, how to believe that they have a purpose outside of making babies and cleaning a house,
Tell me about it. Mhm,
how to put up boundaries so that when people show you how they feel about you, you know how to respond.
mhm.
That's what I'm doing for our community while I'm speaking at summits and I think this is podcast 55 that I've been
Awesome.
on. And,
Awesome.
I've done 7 women's summits. I
Mhm,
have a summit this afternoon. I have one Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Like every chance that I get to speak, to share my story, what I've been through, how I healed, and how I'm helping everyone else heal,
mhm.
I take it. I take it.
I I have to say that I have heard many a stories of women being essayed by their fathers as a child, but I think yours in the sense that you held on to that secret for so long. I don't think I know anyone who has held on to the secret for that long. And I know just based on your story, but just on being a human, that had to rip you apart. Did you have medical issues?
Yes, yes,
Because
yes.
I know that kind of stress has to be ripping
I
your
had
body
full renal
apart.
failure. I had I have epilepsy,
Oh my
um,
goodness.
renal failure. Like I had a gamut of health issues back in the day.
I can only
Um,
imagine because your body is holding on to all of that stress and the secret, and probably the fear of people finding out the secret because of what has happened in the past. where you don't want anybody to ridicule you or laugh at you, because I don't know why
Yes.
people are thinking this is a joke, but that's weird.
Nothing
That
about it
part
is
is
funny.
the weirdest, one of the weirdest parts of the story, that people were laughing, and that he had such a prominent place in the church and in his job, the job
Mm-hmm.
he held,
Mm-hmm.
that everybody would believe that he was just the pillar of society and you had to be lying.
He it how that slithering snake snuck under the radar,
Mhm.
it wouldn't happen today.
And obviously, based on what you told me, when you got there, his girlfriend knew what
Yeah,
was
she
going
knew
to
something.
happen.
She knew it.
Mhm.
She knew it because it had happened before
Right.
with I can't say which siblings because I leave their truth out of it,
Right.
but
Well, I
with
already suspected that's what it
yeah,
was. So yeah.
yeah, with a couple of
Yeah. Because you said
siblings.
they believed you. So they
Yes.
probably encountered something themselves. Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes.
That's
So,
that's that's crazy. Um, so this is heavy. Okay. Just the whole story just has me thinking. And people ask me why I don't watch certain shows, and it's because it's triggering. Being a former educator and hearing these stories from students themselves, I just told them like that stuff damaged me as an educator. Having students in my class, usually I don't watch things on TV
mm-hmm.
about that. Like I used to
Mm-hmm.
love like what is it called, Law and Order.
SVU.
SVU, I can't
That
watch it.
was my show. That was my
I
show.
can't watch that anymore. I'm just like, this
I
is
can't either.
crazy. I cannot watch it anymore. And I miss watching Law and Order, but the SVU one, I can't watch it, because I've heard so many stories through doing my podcast, just being around other women and being an educator when I used to teach middle school,
Mm-hmm.
just hearing those stories over and over again from family members just assaulting these young ladies and young men too. Um,
Yes.
it's a lot.
My
Um,
brother who transitioned, I can share because he transitioned,
mhm,
was abused by my father.
really. Oh wow. Is he still alive?
My brother?
No, your father.
Oh no, that sucker
Oh,
is
okay. Okay. Yeah.
no.
Is
20
okay.
2016. I was set free of that burden.
Okay, good. Um, this has been an incredible conversation. And I hope that there are women who are going to listen to this and they're going to feel like it's time for them to free themselves of that
Mhm.
burden as well. Before we wrap up, I have two more questions that I have to ask. And the first one is, what makes you an impactor?
I'm an advocate for change and I have the heart for it. I care. I care.
Mhm,
This isn't just my story. This is the story of so many of our women who lived in the what goes on in this house stays in this house era.
mhm.
So if they're too afraid to use their voice, I'll be their voice and I will hold their hands through it.
Awesome. If there are three things that three strategies, three tips, um, words of inspiration that you would want to leave with the audience today, especially women who may be currently going through this with their
Mhm.
husbands or had this happen to them in childhood or whatever, what would those be?
Surrender to the divine,
Mhm.
um, the all, whatever you want to call it, God, universe, source, all. Know that you are worth far more. And yes, you can. When they say, I can't leave, I
Mhm.
can't heal, I can't because, yes, you can.
Okay. All right. Tawana, thank you so much for being my guest today on Impactors Out Loud. Can you tell everyone where they can find you so that they can utilize your services?
blackbutterflygoddess.com and Black Butterfly Goddess across all social media.
Social. Awesome. And you say you're on TikTok a lot, it seems
Yes.
like. So you can go there. Maybe you might catch her live and be able to talk to her directly.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Until next time, everyone. Bye bye.